The sky burned red as the alien ship tore through the atmosphere, leaving a trail of fire in its wake. It crashed into the barren desert with a deafening roar, sending shockwaves across the empty landscape. Dust and debris filled the air, and for a moment, everything was still. Then, the silence was broken by the sound of metal groaning as the ship's hatch slowly opened. A figure stumbled out, collapsing onto the sand. It was not human. The alien was tall, with shimmering silver skin that reflected the sunlight like a mirror. Its body was covered in strange, glowing symbols, and its eyes were a deep, unnatural blue. But what caught the attention of the soldiers who arrived at the scene was the alien's wounds. Deep gashes ran across its chest, and its breathing was labored. It was dying. The soldiers approached cautiously, weapons drawn. The alien raised a trembling hand, not in aggression, but in desperation. Its voice was weak, but its words were clear. "You, humans, are the ones we've been searching for," it said, each word a struggle. "You are the ultimate warrior race." The soldiers exchanged confused glances. What did it mean? Before anyone could ask, the alien continued. "They are coming, the Empire, they hunt warrior races. They will test you, destroy you, or absorb you. You must prepare." The alien's body convulsed, and it let out a final, shuddering breath. Its glowing symbols dimmed, and its eyes closed. It was gone. The soldiers stood in stunned silence, staring at the lifeless body. One of them, a young lieutenant, knelt down and examined the alien's wounds. They were unlike anything he had ever seen, clean, precise, and deliberate. Whoever had done this was far more advanced than anything humanity had ever encountered. As the sun set, casting long shadows across the desert, the soldiers loaded the alien's body onto a truck and drove back to their base. The world would soon learn of the alien's arrival, but for now, the secret was theirs. That night, in a secure lab deep underground, scientists began to study the alien's body. They discovered something extraordinary. The alien's DNA was unlike anything on Earth, but it contained traces of human genetic material. It was as if the alien had been searching for humans for a very long time. The scientists also found a small device embedded in the alien's chest. When activated, it projected a holographic message. The message was brief but chilling. To the humans of Earth, it began. "You are not alone in the universe. You are not even the first to rise. But you are the last hope. The Empire is coming. They will test you, as they have tested others. But you are different. You are the ultimate warrior race. Prove it, or perish." The message ended abruptly, leaving the scientists in stunned silence. What did it mean? Why were humans considered warriors? And what kind of tests would they face? As the world's leaders gathered to discuss the alien's warning, one thing became clear: humanity was no longer alone in the universe. And the universe was far more dangerous than anyone had ever imagined. The world was in chaos. News of the alien's arrival spread like wildfire, and people everywhere were gripped by fear and curiosity. Governments scrambled to contain the situation, but it was impossible to keep something of this magnitude a secret. The alien's holographic message was leaked, and soon, everyone knew the truth: humanity was not alone, and it was in grave danger. In a secure bunker deep beneath the mountains, the world's leaders gathered to discuss the alien's warning. The room was tense, filled with the weight of the unknown. On a large screen, the alien's holographic message played on a loop. To the humans of Earth, the alien's voice echoed through the room. "You are not alone in the universe. You are not even the first to rise. But you are the last hope. The Empire is coming. They will test you, as they have tested others. But you are different. You are the ultimate warrior race. Prove it, or perish." The message ended, and the room fell silent. No one knew what to say. Finally, one of the leaders spoke up. "What does this mean?" he asked, his voice trembling. "What kind of tests are we talking about? And why us? Why are we considered warriors?" The scientists in the room exchanged uneasy glances. One of them, a renowned geneticist, stepped forward. "We've analyzed the aliens' DNA," she said. "It's unlike anything we've ever seen, but it contains traces of human genetic material. It's as if the alien has been searching for us for a very long time. As for why we're considered warriors, we're not entirely sure. But there's something unique about humans. Our resilience, our adaptability, our ability to endure, it's unlike anything else in the known universe." The room erupted into murmurs. Some leaders argued that humanity should prepare for war, while others believed that diplomacy was the only way to survive. The debate raged on for hours, but no one could agree on a course of action. Meanwhile, in a small lab on the other side of the world, a team of researchers was studying the aliens' device. They discovered that it contained a wealth of information about the alien empire and its history. The empire had been hunting warrior races for centuries, absorbing their strengths and eliminating those who failed their tests. The researchers also found something else, a map of the galaxy, with Earth marked as the next target. The researchers immediately sent their findings to the world's leaders. When the map was displayed on the screen, the room fell silent once again. The empire was vast, spanning countless star systems, and Earth was just a tiny speck in comparison. "We don't have much time," one of the leaders said, his voice heavy with dread. "We need to prepare. But how? We don't even know what we're up against." The geneticist stepped forward again. "We may not know everything," she said, "but we do know one thing: the alien believed in us. It called us the ultimate warrior race. If we're going to survive, we need to believe in ourselves too." Her words hung in the air, a glimmer of hope in the face of overwhelming odds. The leaders knew they had no choice but to prepare for the worst. They began to mobilize their forces, pooling their resources and knowledge to face the unknown threat. But as the days turned into weeks, the tension only grew. People everywhere were on edge, waiting for the empire to arrive. Some prepared for war, while others prayed for peace. But deep down, everyone knew that the real test was yet to come. And then, one day, it happened. The sky darkened, and a massive alien fleet appeared on the horizon. The empire had arrived. The alien fleet was unlike anything humanity had ever seen. Massive ships, sleek and menacing, filled the sky, casting shadows over entire cities. Their surfaces shimmered with an otherworldly glow, and their sheer size made even the largest human structures seem insignificant. The world watched in stunned silence as the fleet descended, hovering just above the Earth's surface. Then, a voice boomed across the planet, speaking in perfect English. It was deep, commanding, and utterly devoid of emotion. "People of Earth," the voice said. "We are the Kryloth Empire. You have been chosen for the trials. Prove your worth, and you may join us as equals. Fail, and you will be erased." The message repeated in every language, ensuring that no one was left in doubt. The world held its breath, waiting for what would come next. In the bunker where the world's leaders had gathered, the tension was palpable. The leaders had been arguing for hours, trying to decide how to respond. Some wanted to fight, while others believed that cooperation was the only way to survive. But before they could reach a decision, the Kryloth sent another message. "You have one Earth day to choose your champions," the voice said. "They will face the first trial. Choose wisely." The screen in the bunker flickered to life, displaying a list of rules for the trials. The first trial would be a test of strength, held in a massive arena constructed by the Kryloth. The champions would face the Empire's warriors in combat, with no weapons or technology allowed. It would be a battle of raw power and skill. The leaders knew they had no choice but to comply. They quickly began selecting their champions, choosing the strongest, fastest, and most skilled individuals from around the world. Among them were soldiers, athletes, and even a few ordinary people who had shown extraordinary abilities in times of crisis. As the champions were gathered and prepared for the trial, the world watched with a mix of fear and hope. People everywhere prayed for their success, knowing that the fate of humanity rested on their shoulders. The day of the trial arrived, and the champions were transported to the arena. It was a massive structure, floating high above the earth, surrounded by the Kryloth fleet. The arena itself was a stark, barren landscape, with no cover or obstacles. The Kryloth warriors stood on one side, tall and imposing, their silver armor gleaming in the sunlight. The human champions stood on the other, nervous but determined. A Kryloth commander stepped forward, his voice echoing across the arena. "This is the first trial," he said. "A test of strength. You will face our warriors in combat. The rules are simple: survive. Begin." Before the humans could react, the Kryloth warriors charged. They were fast, far faster than any human, and their strength was overwhelming. The humans fought bravely, but they were outmatched. One by one, they fell, their bodies crumpling to the ground. But then, something extraordinary happened. One of the human champions, a young soldier who had been on the brink of defeat, suddenly found a reserve of strength he didn't know he had. He dodged a blow that should have killed him, countering with a strike that sent his opponent reeling. The crowd, both human and Kryloth, watched in stunned silence as he fought back with a ferocity that defied explanation. The soldier's courage inspired the other champions. They began to fight with renewed determination, tapping into a hidden well of strength and resilience. Slowly but surely, they began to turn the tide. When the dust settled, the humans stood victorious. The Kryloth warriors lay defeated, and the arena was filled with the sound of cheers from the human spectators. The Kryloth commander stepped forward again, his expression unreadable. "You have passed the first trial," he said. "But do not celebrate yet. The next trial will test your intelligence. Prepare yourselves." As the humans were transported back to Earth, the world celebrated their victory. But the leaders knew that the real challenge was just beginning. The Kryloth had made it clear that the trials would only get harder, and humanity's survival was far from guaranteed. The arena was silent, save for the low hum of the Kryloth ships hovering above. The human champions stood in a tight formation, their eyes fixed on the towering Kryloth warriors across the barren battlefield. The air was thick with tension, and every breath felt like a struggle. The Kryloth commander's words echoed in their minds: "Survive." The Kryloth warriors were unlike anything the humans had ever faced. Their silver armor gleamed under the artificial light of the arena, and their movements were fluid, almost mechanical. They carried no weapons, but their sheer size and speed were weapon enough. The humans, though strong and skilled, felt small in comparison. The signal to begin came without warning. A deafening horn blared, and the Kryloth warriors charged. The ground shook beneath their feet as they closed the distance in seconds. The humans barely had time to react. The first clash was brutal. A Kryloth warrior slammed into a human champion, sending him flying across the arena. Another human tried to counterattack, but her blows seemed to have no effect on the warrior's armor. The Kryloth moved with precision, their strikes calculated and deadly. Within minutes, several humans were on the ground, struggling to get back up. But the humans refused to give up. They fought with everything they had, using their agility and teamwork to their advantage. One champion, a former martial artist, managed to dodge a Kryloth warrior's attack and land a powerful kick to its knee. The warrior stumbled, giving the humans a brief moment of hope. However, the Kryloth quickly adapted. They began to coordinate their attacks, forcing the humans into a defensive position. The champions were pushed to their limits, their bodies aching and their spirits wavering. It seemed like only a matter of time before they were overwhelmed. Then, something extraordinary happened. One of the human champions, a young soldier named Ravi, found himself cornered by two Kryloth warriors. He was exhausted, his body battered and bruised, but something inside him refused to give up. As the warriors closed in, he felt a surge of energy, a fire burning in his chest. He didn't know where it came from, but he knew he had to act. With a roar, Ravi charged at the nearest warrior, ducking under its swing and delivering a powerful uppercut to its jaw. The impact was enough to stagger the warrior, giving Ravi the opening he needed. He followed up with a series of rapid strikes, each one more precise than the last. The warrior fell to the ground, motionless. The other warriors hesitated, their confidence shaken. Ravi's courage inspired the other champions. They began to fight back with renewed vigor, tapping into a hidden reserve of strength they didn't know they had. One by one, the Kryloth warriors fell, their armor no match for the humans' determination. By the time the dust settled, the humans stood victorious. The arena was littered with the bodies of the Kryloth warriors, and the surviving champions were battered but alive. The crowd, both human and Kryloth, watched in stunned silence. The Kryloth commander stepped forward, his expression unreadable. He surveyed the battlefield, his gaze lingering on the fallen warriors before turning to the humans. "You have passed the first trial," he said, his voice cold and emotionless. "But do not celebrate yet. The next trial will test your intelligence. Prepare yourselves." As the humans were escorted out of the arena, the weight of their victory began to sink in. They had proven that humanity was capable of standing up to the Kryloth, but they knew the real challenge was just beginning. The trials would only get harder, and the stakes would only get higher. Back on Earth, the world celebrated the champion's victory, but the leaders knew better than to let their guard down. The Kryloth had made it clear that humanity's survival was far from guaranteed. The next trial would test not just their strength, but their minds as well. The human champions were given little time to recover from the first trial. Bruised and exhausted, they were transported to a new location, a massive, labyrinthine structure floating in space. The Kryloth called it the Mind Forge, a place where intelligence and creativity were put to the ultimate test. The champions stood at the entrance, staring up at the towering walls of the labyrinth. The structure was made of a strange, metallic material that seemed to shift and change as they watched. The air was cold, and the only sound was the faint hum of the Kryloth ships hovering above. The Kryloth commander appeared before them, his holographic form flickering in the dim light. "This is the second trial," he said. "A test of intelligence. You must navigate the labyrinth and solve its puzzles to reach the center. But be warned, the labyrinth is alive. It will adapt to your strategies, and it will not hesitate to eliminate those who fail." The champions exchanged uneasy glances. They had expected another physical challenge, but this was something entirely different. The labyrinth was a maze of logic, riddles, and traps, designed to push their minds to the limit. The commander disappeared, and the entrance to the labyrinth opened with a low rumble. The champions stepped inside, their footsteps echoing in the vast, empty space. The first puzzle appeared almost immediately. A massive door blocked their path, covered in glowing symbols and strange, alien writing. Above the door was a riddle, written in English. "I am not alive, but I grow. I don't have lungs, but I need air. What am I?" The champions huddled together, trying to make sense of the riddle. One of them, a scientist named Elena, was the first to speak. "It's fire," she said. "Fire grows, and it needs air to burn." As soon as she spoke the answer, the symbols on the door began to glow brighter, and the door slid open. The champions moved forward, but they knew this was only the beginning. The labyrinth was filled with puzzles of increasing complexity. Some required logic, others required creativity, and a few seemed to have no solution at all. The champions worked together, pooling their knowledge and skills to overcome each challenge. But the labyrinth was relentless. Walls shifted, traps were triggered, and the puzzles became more difficult with every step. At one point, the champions found themselves in a room with no visible exit. The walls were covered in mirrors, and the floor was a grid of pressure plates. Every time they stepped on a plate, a beam of light shot out from the walls, narrowly missing them. "This is impossible," one of the champions muttered, frustration creeping into his voice. But Elena refused to give up. She studied the room carefully, noticing a pattern in the pressure plates and the beams of light. After several tense minutes, she figured out the solution. "We need to step on the plates in a specific sequence," she said. "Follow me, and step exactly where I step." The champions followed her lead, carefully navigating the grid. When they reached the other side, the mirrors shifted, revealing a hidden door. They stepped through, only to face another puzzle. As they progressed deeper into the labyrinth, the challenges became more abstract. One puzzle required them to communicate with an alien AI, using only gestures and symbols. Another forced them to solve a complex mathematical equation while avoiding a series of moving obstacles. But the champions persevered. They used their creativity and ingenuity to overcome each challenge, proving that humanity's greatest strength was not just its physical power, but its ability to think outside the box. Finally, after what felt like hours, they reached the center of the labyrinth. The room was empty, save for a single pedestal with a glowing orb resting on top. As they approached, the Kryloth commander's voice echoed through the room. "You have passed the second trial," he said. "But do not celebrate yet. The next trial will test your morality. Prepare yourselves." The champions exchanged weary smiles. They had survived the labyrinth, but they knew the hardest challenges were still to come. The human champions were taken to a new location, a vast, dimly lit chamber filled with strange, glowing orbs floating in the air. The orbs pulsed with a soft, rhythmic light, casting eerie shadows on the walls. At the center of the chamber stood a massive, circular platform, surrounded by a deep, dark abyss. The Kryloth commander's voice echoed through the space, cold and unyielding. "This is the third trial," he said. "A test of morality. You will face a choice, and your decision will determine your fate. Choose wisely." The champions stepped onto the platform, their footsteps echoing in the silence. As soon as they were all in place, the orbs began to move, swirling around them in a hypnotic pattern. Then, the platform split into two sections, separating the champions into two groups. A holographic screen appeared in front of each group, displaying a scenario. The champions on one side saw a simulation of a crowded city under attack by an unknown force. The people were panicking, running for their lives as buildings collapsed and fires raged. A voice spoke to them. "You have the power to save this city, but only by sacrificing one of your own. Choose who will give their life to stop the destruction." The champions on the other side saw a different scenario, a small, isolated village suffering from a deadly plague. The villagers were dying, and the only cure was a rare resource that could save them, but using it would mean depriving another, larger population of the same resource. A voice spoke to them. "You must decide who lives and who dies. Will you save the few, or the many?" The champions were stunned. The scenarios were designed to force them into impossible choices, testing their morals and values. They knew there was no easy answer, but they also knew that their decisions would have real consequences. On the first platform, the champions debated fiercely. Some argued that sacrificing one person to save thousands was the logical choice, while others refused to accept the idea of sacrificing anyone. Tempers flared, and the tension grew unbearable. Finally, one of the champions, a medic named Priya, stepped forward. "We can't sacrifice anyone," she said firmly. "That's not who we are. There has to be another way." The others looked at her, unsure. But Priya was determined. She began to analyze the simulation, looking for weaknesses or alternative solutions. After several tense minutes, she found a flaw in the system, a way to disrupt the attack without sacrificing anyone. "We can reroute the energy from the collapsing buildings to create a barrier," she explained. "It won't save everything, but it will buy us time to evacuate the city." The champions quickly got to work, using their combined skills to implement Priya's plan. The simulation shifted, showing the city being saved without the need for sacrifice. The voice spoke again. "You have chosen compassion over logic. Proceed." On the second platform, the champions faced an equally difficult decision. Some argued that saving the larger population was the only logical choice, while others believed that every life was equally valuable. The debate grew heated, but one champion, a teacher named Amir, intervened. "We can't just write off the village," he said. "There has to be a way to save both." Amir proposed a compromise, using part of the resource to stabilize the village while sending the rest to the larger population. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was the best they could do. The champions agreed and implemented the plan. The simulation shifted, showing the village being saved and the larger population receiving the help they needed. The voice spoke again. "You have chosen balance over extremes. Proceed." The two groups were reunited on the platform, and the orbs stopped swirling. The Kryloth commander appeared before them, his expression unreadable. "You have passed the third trial," he said. "But do not celebrate yet. The next trial will reveal the true nature of the Kryloth Empire. Prepare yourselves." As the champions were escorted out of the chamber, they couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. The trials were becoming more complex, and the stakes were higher than ever. They had proven their strength, intelligence, and morality, but they knew the hardest challenges were still to come. The revelation of the Kryloth Empire's true motive sent shockwaves through humanity. The champions returned to Earth with the knowledge that the Empire had been hunting warrior races not to destroy them, but to absorb their strengths into their own civilization. The Kryloth had offered humanity a choice: join their empire as equals or face annihilation. The world was divided. Some believed that joining the Kryloth was the only way to ensure humanity's survival. They argued that the Empire's advanced technology and resources could elevate humanity to new heights, allowing them to thrive in ways they had never imagined. Others, however, saw the offer as a trap, a way for the Kryloth to strip humanity of its identity and independence. The leaders of the world gathered once again, this time to make a decision that would determine the fate of their species. The debate was fierce, with emotions running high. The champions, who had faced the trials and proven humanity's worth, were given a voice in the discussion. "We've seen what the Kryloth are capable of," one of the champions, Ravi, said. "They've tested us, pushed us to our limits, and now they want to absorb us. But we've proven that we're strong, intelligent, and moral. We don't need them to survive." Another champion, Elena, disagreed. "Joining the Kryloth doesn't mean giving up who we are," she argued. "It means evolving, becoming something greater. We could learn from them, grow with them. Isn't that worth considering?" The debate raged on for days, with no clear consensus in sight. Meanwhile, the Kryloth fleet remained in orbit, waiting for humanity's decision. The tension was palpable, and the world watched with bated breath. Finally, the leaders reached a decision. They would put the choice to a global vote, allowing every person on Earth to have a say in their future. It was an unprecedented move, but the stakes were too high to leave the decision in the hands of a few. The vote was conducted quickly, with people from every corner of the world casting their ballots. When the results were tallied, the outcome was clear: humanity had chosen to fight for its independence. The leaders announced the decision to the world, their voices filled with determination. "We have faced the trials and proven our worth," they said. We will not surrender our freedom, our identity, or our future. We will stand together, as one species, and face whatever comes next. The Kryloth commander appeared once more, his holographic form flickering in the air. You have made your choice, he said. But know this, the final trial will be your greatest challenge yet. Prepare yourselves. As the Kryloth fleet began to move, humanity braced itself for the final battle. The champions were called upon once again, this time to lead the charge. They knew the odds were against them, but they also knew that they had something the Kryloth could never understand, the unbreakable spirit of humanity. The Kryloth fleet descended upon Earth, their ships blotting out the sun. The final trial had begun, and humanity knew this was their last chance to prove their worth. The champions, now leaders of the global resistance, rallied their forces. Soldiers, scientists, engineers, and ordinary citizens stood together, united by a common purpose, to defend their home and their future. The battle began in the skies. Human pilots, flying advanced aircraft retrofitted with alien technology, engaged the Kryloth ships in a desperate dogfight. The Kryloth were relentless, their weapons cutting through the human defenses with terrifying precision. But the humans fought back with everything they had, using their ingenuity and adaptability to turn the tide. On the ground, the champions led the charge. Ravi, Elena, Priya, Amir, and the others had become symbols of hope, their courage inspiring everyone around them. They coordinated the defense, using their unique skills to outmaneuver the Kryloth forces. Ravi's strategic mind, Elena's scientific expertise, Priya's medical knowledge, and Amir's ability to unite people proved invaluable. But the Kryloth were not easily defeated. Their ground forces, massive and heavily armored, advanced on human cities, leaving destruction in their wake. The humans fought bravely, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. It seemed like only a matter of time before they were overwhelmed. Then, something extraordinary happened. As the Kryloth forces closed in on a major city, the humans launched a counterattack unlike anything the Empire had ever seen. Using a combination of guerrilla tactics, improvised weapons, and sheer determination, they managed to push the Kryloth back. The champions led the charge, their resilience and teamwork turning the tide of the battle. In the skies, the human pilots discovered a weakness in the Kryloth ships. By targeting their energy cores, they were able to disable entire fleets. The Kryloth, confident in their superiority, had never anticipated such creativity and resourcefulness. As the battle raged on, the Kryloth commander appeared before the champions once more. His holographic form flickered, his expression unreadable. "You have proven yourselves worthy," he said. "But this is not over." The champions knew what they had to do. They launched a final, desperate assault on the Kryloth command ship, the heart of the Empire's fleet. The mission was dangerous, but they had no other choice. If they could take down the command ship, they could end the war. The assault was chaotic and brutal. The champions fought their way through waves of Kryloth warriors, their bodies pushed to the limit. But they refused to give up. When they finally reached the command center, they found the Kryloth commander waiting for them. "You have fought well," he said. "But you cannot win." Ravi stepped forward, his voice steady. "We've already won," he said. "You thought you could break us, but you underestimated us. We're not just warriors. We're survivors. And we'll never stop fighting for what we believe in." With those words, the champions activated the self-destruct sequence, sacrificing themselves to destroy the command ship. The explosion lit up the sky, a brilliant flash of light that signaled the end of the Kryloth Empire's reign. When the dust settled, the Kryloth fleet was in disarray. Without their command ship, they were lost and confused. The humans seized the opportunity, launching a final, coordinated attack that drove the remaining forces from Earth. The battle was over. Humanity had won. In the aftermath, the world began to rebuild. The champions were remembered as heroes, their sacrifice a testament to the strength and resilience of the human spirit. The Kryloth, humbled by humanity's courage, left Earth in peace, vowing never to return. As the years passed, humanity took its place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as explorers and protectors. They had learned a valuable lesson: true strength lies not in physical power or advanced technology, but in compassion, adaptability, and the ability to unite in the face of adversity. And so, the story of humanity's triumph became a beacon of hope for all who heard it, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the light of the human spirit can never be extinguished.